Hello, and it's lovely to be back on the Settle to Carlisle Railway. My first stop on this journey is Dent Station in the Yorkshire Dales on a beautiful Saturday morning in mid-July with wall-to-wall sunshine and lovely warm temperatures. The station serves the little communities of Dent and the surrounding villages. It's one of the finest examples of a rural British train station with its Grade 2 listed original buildings still intact, although they were sold off to private investors some time ago and transformed into holiday lets. During the 1970s, the station buildings were rented to schools who brought pupils to the station and used it as a base for outdoor adventures in the Yorkshire Dales. As you will have seen at the beginning of the video, it's also England's highest operational railway station at 350 metres above sea level. Or if you're like me and you deal in feet and inches, it's 1,150 feet. The two platforms have original stone waiting shelters, as well as timetable posters, and information boards, but there's little else in the way of facilities. The first thing you notice when you step off the train at Dent is that you're ideally placed for hiking adventures in the Yorkshire Dales National Park. I met a group of hikers who got off one of the trains while I was at the station, and they were heading to Great Knoutsbury Hill, which they tell me offers extraordinary views across the stark moorland scenery from its summit. The village of Dent, with its cobbled streets, is nearly 5 miles from the station along the Dales Way, and it has a 12th century church, St Andrew, and a memorial stone of Dent marble to Adam Sedgwick, Professor of Geology at Cambridge University. Dent Station had been unstaffed for about 3 years before the station buildings were closed in 1970. As with many of the settling Carlisle stations, there had been great provision for goods facilities, and even at Dent, coal and cattle were catered for until these facilities were removed in 1964. For me, Dent is one of the most beautiful places on the Settle to Carlisle line. Just look at these sweeping views down the dale. There's a feeling of timelessness all around you. As I mentioned earlier, the former station master's house is in private ownership and is now used for upmarket holiday accommodation. It was renovated in 2012 and was one of the first houses built in Britain to be fitted with double glazing. The property comfortably accommodates up to 6 people in 3 bedrooms. The lounge is formerly the main waiting room. The ladies' waiting room is now the kitchen. The bathroom, along with the shower and washroom, have all been fitted out to a very high standard. At the very top of the picture is the snow hut, which was a refuge for railway workers during hostile conditions while working on the line. In 2010, the snow hut was restored to provide stunning accommodation and is beautifully appointed and available for rent on a weekly basis. Well, it's a week later, and I've arrived at Garsdale Station. And whilst most of the country is basking in record temperatures in a heat wave, here at Garsdale, what a transformation in the weather. It's cool, it's overcast, and there's persistent drizzle. It certainly is a very bleak location. There's just a scattered community with a line of former railway staff cottages, a number of isolated farms, a chapel, and the Moorcock Inn. Many of the original railway fittings have been removed, most notably the turntable, which has been restored and installed at the Keighley and Worth Valley Heritage Railway. Originally, the station was called Hall's Junction, and there was a 6-mile line to the Wensleydale town of Halls. Looking north from Garsdale Station, you can see the double-track main line which heads towards Carlisle, but to the right is the single-track branch line that ran to Halls and stations to North Allerton. You're looking now at the Moorcock Viaduct, which crosses Dandry Mire, and it is one of the most popular photographic positions on the railway. One of the things that really stood out for me during my visit to Garsdale Station was to learn more about the story of Graham Nuttall, co-founder and first secretary of the Friends of the Settle Carlisle line, along with his trusty companion Ruswarp. In the 1980s, the Settle Carlisle line was under threat of almost certain closure. One of the earliest campaigners against closure was Graham Nuttall. He, along with his dog Ruswarp, were inseparable. Ruswarp's paw print was deemed to be a valid signature among tens of thousands of objectors to closure. Graham lived just long enough to see the line's reprieve in 1989. For on the 20th of January 1990, along with Ruswarp, he went missing in Wales. The case aroused national interest. On the 7th of April 1990, a lone walker found Graham's body by a mountain stream. Nearby was Ruswarp, who had stayed with his dead master for 11 winter weeks. He was so weak that the 14-year-old dog had to be carried off the mountain. The RSPCA honoured the dog and paid for his veterinary care. Ruswarp lived just long enough to attend Graham's funeral, having been lovingly cared for by Graham's aunt and uncle. It was through Ruswarp that the plight of the Settle to Carlisle Railway leapt back into the public mind. Having been reprieved, the line needed massive investment if it was to recover from years of neglect. The bronze statue by sculptress Joel Walker was placed at Garsdale Station in 2009 by the Friends of the Settle to Carlisle line to symbolise the successful campaign to save the line for future generations to use and enjoy, and to the memory of Graham Nuttall and his faithful dog, Ruswarp. What a view that is of the train crossing Dandry Mire, the Moorcock Viaduct, as it approaches the station at Garsdale in the pouring rain. Well, I've really enjoyed my visit to Dent and Garsdale stations, another two beautiful, charismatic stations on the Settle Carlisle line. Nothing on this line ever disappoints, and if you've seen my videos on the stations of the Dent Valley, you will have seen other stations further down the line, including Armouthwaite, Lazenby and Kirkoswald, Langworthby, Kirkby Stephen and Appleby. Today there's a frequent and well patronised passenger service which is popular with local inhabitants and tourists, but the line is also served by heavy long distance freight traffic as well. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. So until the next time, from me, Stephen Bennett, take care. Bye bye.